In this video, we're going to see how to add an activity to an existing Android application. So if we take a look at the liveplanplaces.com, it starts with the search by color screen, and you can also go to the GPS of plant screen. In our application, we have built the GPS of plant screen. We haven't made it work yet, we've just built the screen, but we have not done anything with search by color. So in this video, we'll take a look at how to create another screen. In future videos, we'll also look at how to invoke that screen from a menu and set up a menu system like you see here. So let's start by creating a new screen. I go to the package where my existing activity lives because I want to keep these activities together. I right-click and I choose New, and then we'll say Activity, and then we'll say probably an empty activity is good, or actually a basic activity might work better because that gives us the floating action button. So I say basic activity, and I'm going to call this one color capture activity because this is the one that's doing GPS of plant. Activity color capture is fine for the layout. All of this looks good. Source language is Java. That's good. Everything here looks good. So I go ahead and choose finish. It will create the activity, which is the Java class that acts like a controller. And notice it also creates two layouts for me. One is the content, which is the primary screen that we're looking at, and then the activity sits on top of the content, and it has things like the floating action button, so we don't have to, the floating action button, just a moment, I'll show you what that guy looks like just in case you forgot. We'll go back to our activity here. It's this guy which we haven't used yet, which you see is currently an email icon. But the nice thing with that being in that activity layer is that we don't have to make room for it in the content layer. The content is all of the text boxes and buttons and things that you see here. So I'm good with that. We go ahead and choose OK, and it creates our activity. Now, if I start the app, we need a way to get to this screen, and for that we require an explicit intent. In other words, let me go ahead and save and run the app right now, and I'll show you what I mean. You see the app is restarted, but there's no way to get from this GPS of plant screen to our other screen. So what I'm going to do is take one of the buttons that I have not made functional yet. Maybe we'll take this open button. I don't think we've done anything with that. And I will add a call from this screen to the other screen. So I go back to my GPS of plant, and let's see, I have a button click listener for the pause button, but I don't have one for that file open button. This is temporary. I'm going to make that file open button do something else eventually, but just for the moment, I want to be able to go from one screen to the other. So I'm going to go to Content GPS of Plant, and I'm going to take a look. Little tight in here, but we'll take a look. What is this button called? It's called BTN Open. Okay. Now I've already set this project up with Butterknife, so I go back to GPS of Plant, maximize this screen, and we'll say public void navigate. Well, we'll just say go to color capture, like so. And then using the Butterknife library, I simply annotate this with @onClick, and I tell it which button I want this to be the onClick handler for. In other words, if I say r.id.btn open, okay, it's saying for the button that has the ID btn open, when that button is clicked, go to this method and invoke this method. Okay, great. So from this method, we simply need to navigate from the GPS of plant screen to the color capture activity. Now, one thing I'll point out is that we should make sure that color capture activity has an entry in this file called AndroidManfiest.xml. One good news, it typically adds that automatically. It's just a good idea to kind of give it a second check. And sure enough, when we created the activity in the background, it added this activity nugget to our Android manifest, so we're all good. What's important here is this Android name. That tells us the name of the activity, and the dot that precedes it just says, hey, this is a class within a package. So I go back to GPS of Plant, and now I need to set up an explicit intent to invoke another screen. An explicit intent means I want to go from one activity, like GPS of Plant, to another activity. And I'm going to say what that other activity is explicitly. I'm going to give it a name. We'll typically use explicit intents when we want to navigate from one screen to another within our application. If we want to activate something that's on the phone that's not owned by our application, like the image gallery, like the camera, then we'll use a different kind of intent, an implicit intent, where we just say what we want to do, but not how we want to do it. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and fill out this explicit intent to go to another screen. I say intent, and we'll call it color capture intent. We'll go ahead Alt-Enter to import that intent. Intent color capture intent equals new intent. And I'm going to say color capture activity dot class. Note, I don't need to put it in quotes or anything like that. I'm just referring to the class itself. I do have to pass two parameters, though. I have to tell it where I'm coming from. So I start by passing in the keyword this, and then color capture activity.class. Next, I'll say start activity, and then we'll say color capture intent. Now afterwards, we might want to say finish. If we want to terminate the screen we're currently on, it's a good idea to call finish, which just closes it down. Otherwise, we continue to have, if we navigate from one screen to another, they go onto a stack, and if we hit back, we have to navigate back through every single screen that we visited. So sometimes we want to use finish, not always needed, but it's a case-by-case basis. I will leave it in and comment it out. Meanwhile, let me go ahead and save, and I'm going to debug. Now, there's not going to be a whole lot on this other screen because we haven't added anything to it. We just want to see, have we set the screen up properly, and can we navigate from our main screen to our second screen? While the application is loading here, I will issue one caution, and that is, don't be tempted to put too many screens in your application. The fewer screens, the better. We want to minimize click depth for the user, and we want a very simple, easy-to-use application. Oftentimes, fewer screens, fewer widgets helps us to accomplish this goal. Now, the application has loaded in the emulator. Take a look at this. Do you see GPS a plant? Now you see here we have our file open button, which, as I said, will do something else eventually. I just want to do a proof of concept. Now, just for S&Gs, I'm going to snap a breakpoint here in this color capture button, and also in the onCreate method of the color capture activity, because I want us to see the order in which these breakpoints hit. So first I click the open button, and sure enough you see go to color capture fires. I choose F9, which tells it to continue running, and then the onCreate for color capture activity fires. And once again, I can choose F9 for that to tell it to continue to run. Let me go ahead and take off these breakpoints so we can see that a bit more smoothly next time around. Let's take a look. Sure enough, color capture activity is the screen that's showing now. You can see the text up there at the top says color capture activity. Indeed, I can hit the back button to go to the GPS screen. I can hit the open button to go to color capture activity. Back and forth, just like so, I'm able to navigate screen to screen. So in this video, we saw how to create a new activity. We didn't add anything to it just yet, but we also saw how to use an explicit intent to navigate from one activity to another. I hope this video has been helpful. In the next video series, we're going to see how to create an actual menu so that we can click and we can navigate back and forth based on this menu. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.